What's happening, everybody? I'm back. Before I forget, if you can, subscribe, throw a like, whatever. I'm trying to get in the algorithm. I'm trying to get monetized and all that, slow process, but it's going, So if you can subscribe, you know what I mean? All right. So I was watching a video today, and the guy, Chloe's grandpa. Watch him all the time. He just prays, and so I pray with him every day. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel like a good person. I feel good. But he was saying, if anybody has a story out there of how God intervened in your life or helped you or anything like that, So I just thought I'll throw my 2 cents in there, throw my story out there. My encounter with God, like everybody knows, I told you guys, like I'm an ex-con. I've been to everywhere, I've been juvenile hall, California Youth Authority, county jail. I've been to prison, in almost every aspect of incarceration. I've been in it, and I was always one of those guys that was like, in and out. I would get a year, I'd get 18 months, I would get something like that, 2 years, 5. I did 5 once. So I never was doing stretches. I was never doing time like 20 years, 18 years. Like I never did that straight like that. But the last time I got arrested, I got caught red-handed with the weapon. The person that got injured by that weapon, it was all bad, and I was already had felonies, and so it was pretty bad for me, and my deal that they were trying to give me was 38 years. That was like my deal, without no life sentence, just 38 years, and I was just like, man, I'm not doing that, and I was already like 28 years old, and they're trying to give me all this time, and I remember like, man, I'm done, it's over for me, it's over for me. So I remember that night I came home, I came to my cell from court, and I was just like, man, that was like the deal the DA was trying to get, like, yeah, right. So I was just like, I prayed to God, I told God, man, if you could get me out of this, I'll change my ways, I'll change my ways, and I already knew I was doing wrong. I already knew I wanted to change and be a normal person, at that point in time, I already knew that I wanted to change my ways, and I already knew I was living wrong, and this is wrong, being in a gang, being in and out of prison, doing drugs, doing, harming people, assaulting, that all that stuff was it's not the right lifestyle, and I knew that, but and then not too long, it was a long time ago. I don't really remember the timeline, but my buddy, my homeboy, he bailed me out, and then I left and then I was like, you know what, this is my chance, God answered my prayer, and so I left the state, he got me, my homeboy got me an apartment and got me a job over there in another state, and I was doing good, I was doing good for a while, probably 6 months or something, working, had my own little apartment, maybe not 6 months, maybe like 4 or 5, but it seemed like a long time, you know? And I was bugging him, you know, like, hey, I want to go to the hood, see the homies. Dumb idea, you know? But anyways, it all worked out, you know? But, so we went back, he drove me down, you know, we went to the hood. On the way back, we're going to another state, you know? So we're like in the middle of the desert, you know, nowhere to, and we get pulled over by a highway patrol, you know, and I'm wanted, you know. I got bailed out and I skipped bail, you know. And so I was just like, man, as soon as we got pulled over, you know, the cop came up to my side. I was on the passenger side, and the cop came up and it was just like, asked him for his ID, you know, and then asked me, and I was just like, you know what? I just told him straight up, you know what? I'm wanted. I'm this, you know, and I skipped bail, you know. I just told him straight up. And then I remember when we were all like, you know, my homeboy, they ended up letting him go. But I remember when we were sitting there and they were searching the car and stuff, I was in handcuffs, and he was my homeboy was telling me, why didn't you run? And I was like, we're in the middle of the desert. Where am I going to run to? You know? So time had went by, you know, 5 months or something like that. So when they brought me back and I went to court, you know, I was already stressing like, oh man, all this is coming back now, you know. And next thing you know, there was a couple witnesses, and next thing you know, they can't find the witnesses. All this evidence, you know, time had went by and stuff, and witnesses, they couldn't find them anymore. They lived in the projects, they couldn't find them, you know. They probably realized, oh, I don't want to testify, whatever. But, so, all in all, make a long story longer, you know what I mean? They ended up, they didn't have anything on me except for the weapon that I got caught with, you know? So, they offered me some stupid deal like 7 years or something. And I was like, nah, I'll take it to trial, you know? I'll take this thing all the way to trial. I'll go halfway to trial, and then I'll fire my public defender and get a new one, start all over, you know? But, so they didn't really want to do that. The DA she didn't really want it. It was a woman. She didn't really want to do that, you know? So then after a little bit of haggling back and forth, my public defender comes and tells me, like, hey, she said she'll give you 2 years with halftime. So I was like, where's the pin at, you know? 2 years with halftime, where's the pin at, you know? So I signed that deal quick, you know? But that was God, you know, like I asked God to get me out of that situation somehow, you know? Not by, you know, telling on anybody. There was nobody to tell on. I committed the crime. You know, what am I going to do, you know? But, you know, that was my interaction with God, you know? Like, I asked him for that, and he got me out, and he made that whole little situation happen. He made that evident, you know, like, that's how I take it, you know? He gave me that chance, you know? That's what I told him. That's what I asked. I told him, if you give me this chance, you know, I'll change my ways, you know? And he did that, you know what I mean? And I'm grateful, you know? And I got to keep my promise, you know what I mean? I made a promise to God, you know? And I got to keep that promise, you know what I mean? So I got to be a good man. I got to try to, you know, help other people now. I got to try to, you know, that's my purpose now, you know? That's it, you know what I mean? But I just wanted to give you guys that story, you know, like it was so long ago. I didn't even think about anything before I started telling this story, or any facts or any years or anything like that. I don't keep track of all that type of stuff, you know, like I don't even care about none of that stuff, you know. I'm one of those guys, like whenever I'm locked up, it's never very long, you know, it's a couple years, 2-3 years, whatever. I don't even look at the date. I don't even look at the calendar. I don't even know what days it is. I don't even know what month it is. I just roll, you know? And then when the day comes, you know, like that's it. I'm not checking a calendar, days off the calendar, you know, like that's not my thing, you know. But yeah, that's my interaction with God. That's my, you know, like that's how God saved me, you know. God saved me, you know. What I was doing before wasn't working, obviously, you know what I mean? So I had, you know, God saved me, you know, and that's what the video I was watching that was talking about, you tell your story about God, you know, like everybody's got a personal story with God, you know, everybody's got something personal with God, you know, like, but the thing is, I don't know about women, but men are embarrassed, you know, they feel like, because I was there before too, I was there at one point, we feel like it's not tough to, you know, oh God, oh, you know, like to talk about God and stuff, you know what I mean? But that's crazy, you know? That's crazy. So that's my story about God, everybody, you know, and everybody, you know, and I'm going to pass this along too. If anybody has a story about God or whatever, leave it in my comments. Let me know, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know everybody's experience with God, you know what I mean? You telling it, like me telling it right now, it's going to pass on to another person, you know what I mean? And you know, on and on, you know what I mean? All right, everybody, the traffic went away and I'm swerving all over the place. All right, everybody, have a good day and God bless. Thank you.